Welcome to Really Old Movies. I'm your host, Harrison Scullin, and today I'll be discussing Scarlet Street from 1945, starring Edward G. Robinson, and directed by Fritz Lang. Some essential movie details from the film's IMDb page. Edward G. Robinson's character talks lovingly about art and says he wishes he owned a Sassani. In real life, Robinson was a great collector of fine art and was considered an expert. And another detail is he was actually studying to be a lawyer. And so Edward G. Robinson had a pretty extensive education, but he decided to turn to acting instead. Another detail, this film is in the public domain, so there are several versions of it online on VHS, DVD, and even digital. Alright, so now I'll get to my thoughts on the plot. I give it a 4 out of 5. I thought it was a great plot. The ending really caught me off guard. So Edward G. Robinson's character, his name's Christopher, he kills Kitty, who he was trying to have a relationship with, even though he's married. In reality, she was trying to swindle him because his art was actually selling really, really well, and she was trying to make money off of him. He thought it was for romantic reasons. And so he gets angry at her and he kills her. And it's blamed on Kitty's actual boyfriend. His name is Johnny, who goes to jail for it, and the trial and all that. They believe Edward G. Robinson, or Christopher's, testimony. And that guy goes to jail, and he dies. And Edward G. Robinson's character, he's guilty. He has a guilty conscience. He keeps hearing their voices, and no one believes him. That, to me, is the really interesting and crazy part of this movie, is no one believes him. He confesses it. No one believes him. And we see a flash forward a couple years later, and he's a homeless guy walking around town, and there's some cops there saying that guy said he killed these two people, but no one believes him. And that just really blew me away. I know it's a spoiler, but the movie's almost 80 years old, but that to me is probably the biggest reason alone to even see this movie, is that crazy twist ending. Did not see coming at all. Usually these type of movies, he would confess and then he would go to jail the rest of his life, something like that, but no one believes him, and I loved it. It was fantastic. But other than that, the rest of the plot is kind of your standard. It's pretty much a B movie. Now, sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. It's kind of hit and miss. This one, it was an interesting plot, but it really didn't pick up until the last act. So just keep that in mind when you're watching this, that the first two acts are kind of slow. Not just slow, but also not a whole lot happens that's really interesting. And that kind of leads into my next part, which is the acting. Give it a 3.5 out of 5. Thought it was good. Edward G. Robinson was the best part of it, and he's leagues better than anybody else in this movie. The actress for Kitty was really annoying to me, and the actor for Johnny was really annoying. They were definitely B-movie level. They were really over the top and hamming it up, and were really distracting compared to Edward G. Robinson, who played a more calm and collected character, and I really, really liked that. So that's why I gave it a 3.5 out of 5, mainly for Edward G. Robinson, but everyone else kind of brought it down for me. All right, in regards to directing, I thought it was fantastic. I give it a 4 out of 5. Fritz Lang, he's one of my favorite directors. He directed one of my favorite movies, Metropolis, and he also did M. He also did Dr. Mabuse. He did a couple other movies. The sad part for me, though, about his career, kind of on a tangent, is in Germany, he was like this hailed auteur of cinema. And when he came to the US, he had to do kind of cheap B movies, which is really sad to me. But even though that was the case, his style really comes through in this movie, and it's really, really excellent. The crazy close-ups. The painting of Kitty looked a lot like the Maria character in Metropolis. I thought that was a nice little nod to it. Edward G. Robinson's hair kind of looks like Friedrich's hair. He's another character in that movie. Like, there were some little nods to his other movies in there that I really, really liked. And the crazy camera angles still. He's still fantastic at it. Reason why I give it a 4, though, is I didn't like the other actors. And again, maybe it is because it was B-movie level and he wasn't given the greatest actors and actresses to pick from. Because the Johnny and Kitty character were really, really annoying to me. And I don't know if we could really blame him for that, but he stuck with it, So I gave it a 4 out of 5. And I wanted to see more of Edward G. Robinson, Like, why didn't we see him as much? He was probably the best part of the whole movie. All right, in regards to cinematography and special effects, I also give it a 4 out of 5. Now, like I was mentioning earlier, this film is in the public domain. So I saw this version on Canopy. I think it's the complete version. It's really hard to tell. It's like I said, there's so many versions of it. This particular one, it looked like someone went over and colored it, maybe for television or something like that. I'm not sure, but they made a colored version of it, and it does not look good. I think this movie is supposed to be in black and white. It kind of feels like it is, just looking at it. So keep that in mind when you're watching it, that if it's in black and white, that's the correct version. But if it's in color, that is not the correct version. So I need to keep track of that next time. Make sure I see the correct theatrical version. But it was hard to find it without having to purchase it. And like I said, it is in the public domain, but it's really hard to know which one is the official version without buying it. So anyways, I thought that coloring that was done on it was very distracting. I just didn't feel giving it a really high score because the cinematography looks amazing. But I didn't feel comfortable giving it a high score because I don't want people thinking, oh, because this version of it looks really good. It doesn't. It looks terrible. But I also didn't feel comfortable giving it a low score either because it's not the production team's fault. It's whoever made this particular edition of it. So I'm trying to keep it. I think a 4 is a good score for it because it's not terrible. It actually looks really, really good. Even though the set pieces were kind of limited, but again, it's a B movie. It actually looked really good. So that's why I gave it a 4 out of 5. So in regards to the music, I gave that a 4 out of 5. I really liked it. It was good. It was very tense, especially at the end when Christopher murders Kitty, and then Johnny's blamed for it. There's a whole court trial, and Johnny is given the death penalty, all of that. It's really tense music, and it's really, really excellent. And then also the scene where Christopher, he can hear their voices in his head, and it's crescendoing up, and it's really tense, and he's about to explode. It's really, really good. So that's why I gave it a 4 out of 5. All right, so tallying that all up, that brings my Letterboxd score to a 3.9 out of 5, which I'm rounding to, you guessed it, a 4 out of 5. So would I recommend this movie? Yes, I would. I think the ending alone is a big reason to watch it because it's a very unique and different way of ending a movie that you'd hardly ever see in any kind of movie, let alone film noir. So yeah, I really liked the ending. I was having a hard time getting through the first 2 acts. I will admit that. But it's really worth it. It's a good setup and payoff. The payoff of the 3rd act is actually really, really good. So yeah, I do recommend this movie. All right, well, those are my thoughts on Scarlet Street from 1945. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Make sure to follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Really Old Movies, where I discuss details about the week's particular film. New podcast episodes are released Saturdays at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music. All right, thank you so much. This has been Really Old Movies. I'm your host, Harrison Scullin. Take care.